So, found an interesting article. Lifetime alimony. Apparently, its headline, "This is the death sentence for me." Florida Republican women say they will swiftly exit the state because lifetime alimony has been taken down in Florida. And the tweets are funny as hell. We're going to read those later, but
alimony, once the golden parachute for the recently single, now potentially just a relic of the past. Imagine this. You're stepping off the marriage train, ready to embrace your new life, only to realize that your financial safety net has just been banned.
Florida alimony law and how it may catch fire in other Republican-led states. The measure was called SB 1416, and it's a bill that not even Rick Scott, the former Republican governor, would sign.
That's right, folks. The days of collecting checks from your ex might be over, and it's raising eyebrows, concerns, and a whole lot of laughs. But is this really the end of an era, or just the beginning of a modern comedy of errors?
Looking at exactly what is alimony. Well, alimony is the legal obligation that's imposed by the court on one spouse to pay the other spouse some kind of financial support after a marital separation or after a divorce.
First things first, what's the deal with alimony anyway? For those of you who aren't up to speed, alimony is essentially financial support that one ex-spouse pays to the other after a divorce.
Alimony is spousal support, separate and apart from child support, paid from one spouse to the other. It is also designed to help rehabilitate a spouse who may have not been working outside the home for quite some time. For example, a spouse who's stayed at home to sacrifice their career to raise children. How is alimony calculated? In most jurisdictions, alimony is calculated by a formula. This formula takes into consideration two factors: the length of the marriage and the financial circumstances of the party. At the end of the day, the question is how much spousal support will be paid and for how long. While you certainly may have access to these formulas, it is highly recommended that you speak to a seasoned matrimonial practitioner who can help you and advise you as to whether or not you are entitled to spousal support or obligated to pay spousal support, and for how long and how much.
Think of it as the marriage is final. Thank you for playing. Here's a parting gift. It was designed to help the financially disadvantaged spouse maintain a similar standard of living to what they had during the marriage.
And old societal structures. Exactly, and that's what that is. And now today, because women are getting hit just as bad as men when it comes to alimony. I mean, Janet Jackson, 9 years of marriage, had to pay out $15 million. Madonna had the large...
Alimony's been around for centuries. Seriously, we're talking Roman Empire old. Back in the day, it was all about ensuring that women, who often had no means of supporting themselves, wouldn't end up on the streets after a divorce.
I make $75,000 a year and my wife makes $250,000. I shouldn't have to give her anything. I went to school while he sat around. Why should I pay him anything? I'm the wife. He should be paying me. You have to pay him $3,000 a month in alimony. Just because you're a woman does not mean that you don't pay alimony. You make more money than him, so he gets the $3,000 to keep up with his lifestyle. That's not fair. Thanks, Judge. I never would have known without Attorney Jafari.
Fast forward to modern times, and while the gender dynamics have shifted, hello independent women, alimony has stuck around until now, that is.
What determines if I get alimony or not in a divorce case? Well, first and foremost, I would say alimony is not something that you're absolutely entitled to in any divorce case. It has a myriad of factors, just like custody, just like divorce grounds. Everything has factors. And one of the things that the courts point to in an alimony analysis, number one, is the length of time of the marriage. So if you've been in a marriage that is less than, I would say, 70 years, you should not be seeking alimony. You're probably not going to qualify for alimony on that alone. I think the alimony provisions in both DC and Maryland are set up for persons who have been in marriages for long periods of time, right? We're talking 20, 15, 30-year marriages where one party had a grave advantage over the other as far as income. So a disparity existed, so to say. So if one party was making $250,000 and one party was making $80,000, that is a grave disparity in income. And arguably, the parties did maintain a certain lifestyle, notwithstanding the disparity in income. And that is the reason why the court would give alimony. Now, there are multiple types of alimony. There are alimony is generally rehabilitative in nature, meaning that the court is going to order another person to pay you alimony for a period of time where you become whole. They're not going to do it forever. It's not until you die. And again, those situations where alimony is permanent and it's forever, those are very rare situations, and they are situations, again, where one person was gravely impacted by the income disparity of the other. And I have seen that in cases where, like, for example, my client was a school teacher and the other party was a mechanical engineer. And he wasn't just a mechanical engineer, he was a mechanical engineer at the Neurospace Aeroscience Museum. So he had like $600,000 that he made a year, and she made 60. So those are very grave disparities in incomes, and they had a long marriage, and they had children, and they had property, and there were other things that the court had to adjust to kind of allocate her lifestyle to be as close as it could have been when they were still married. And that's the point of alimony. I just wanted to clarify that for you. If you're in need legal services, please contact my office. Thank you.
Well, some lawmakers argue that alimony is outdated and unfair in an era where both partners are more likely to be working and contributing to the household income.
It's that time of year again. Florida alimony reform. They are trying to change alimony laws in the state of Florida, and here's what you need to know. Number one, they're trying to remove permanent alimony. Now, what is permanent alimony again? It's where you keep paying alimony until you go back to court and show you shouldn't have to anymore, and they are trying to take that away. Another proposed change is that the court would be then directed to consider a party's mental health and not just physical health when considering awards of alimony. In addition, it indicates that if someone is in a supportive relationship, meaning they separated from their spouse, they're now living with a new boyfriend or girlfriend who's contributing towards their bills, that should be taken into consideration by the court. I think that's a good add. They've also changed the terms of the marriages. So it used to be that a short-term marriage was anything from 0 to 7 years. Now it's 0 to 10. A moderate-term marriage is now 10 to 20 years, and long-term marriages are 20 plus years. The proposed legislation indicates that a marriage of 3 years or less cannot get durational alimony at all. Now, the proposed legislation also includes that durational alimony may not be in excess of a duration of 50% of a short-term marriage, 60% of a moderate-term marriage, and no longer than 75% of the duration of a long-term marriage. Now, alimony amounts will still be based on need and ability to pay, but here's what it says about specifically as to amount, that the amount of durational alimony is the amount determined by the obligee's reasonable need or an amount not to exceed 35% of the difference between the parties' net incomes, whichever amount is less. So who would this apply to? It specifically says that this would apply to any filings of dissolution of marriage filed after July 1 of 2023.
Let's talk about the new Florida alimony law and how it might catch on in other Republican-led states. SB 1416 is a bill that no one, including former Republican Governor Rick Scott, will sign. However, DeSantis signed it on June 30th, and it became law on July 1st. It terminates permanent alimony.
The measure was called SB 1416, and it's a bill that not even Rick Scott, the former Republican governor, would sign. But DeSantis signed it on June 30th, and it became law on July 1st. It ends permanent alimony. Now, that sounds terrible, and it is terrible for the women of Florida who were counting on having permanent alimony because it's mostly going to affect older women.
This improvement marks a substantial change in how alimony is determined and awarded in the state. The key aspects of the new law include eliminating permanent alimony and replacing it with durational alimony, which is set for a specific period rather than indefinitely. This change aims to provide greater predictability and consistency for divorcing couples, allowing them to better plan their financial futures.
Important because I'm a Republican. I voted for Governor DeSantis, and this makes me very sorry that I did.
Governor Ron DeSantis signed the bill that does away with what's known as permanent alimony. A group known as the First Wives Advocacy Group is among those strongly against the new law, saying it puts older women in a situation that will cause financial devastation.
This reform has been years in the making, with previous attempts to pass similar legislation either being vetoed or withdrawn due to controversy, particularly surrounding child-sharing provisions.
Should women be scared of the new Florida divorce law? Yes. No longer is there permanent alimony. The amount of alimony that you're going to get has been predetermined. The length of time that you are going to get alimony has been cut down. That's why married women should fear the new Florida divorce law.
That sounds bad, And it is, especially for Florida women who are banking on lifelong alimony because it will primarily affect older women. However, just 7 states provide permanent alimony: Connecticut, New Jersey, North Carolina, Oregon, Vermont, and West Virginia. This law limits durational alimony to 3 years and rehabilitative alimony to 5 years.
Now, with the abrupt ending of permanent alimony and some of these changes and ability to legally challenge things, older women in Florida are saying this new law is going to absolutely ruin their lives.
In the wake of a momentous decision by Governor Ron DeSantis, a profound sense of...
And, as always, alimony is canceled if the receiving spouse marries again. This is when things become a little trickier. This new rule also empowers a judge to change existing alimony arrangements based on the payer's age, health, and inclination to retire. It also shifts the duty of continuing to establish that you require alimony to the recipient.
I can't hear it again, getting tired of hearing it all the time. Because I've paid alimony, I'm not paying any of my spouse's attorney's fees and costs in a Florida divorce. That's not how it works. If you've given enough alimony where they can support themselves and pay for their own attorney's fees, maybe. Otherwise, if you're still the dominant wage earner after paying alimony, you're still going to have exposure. So attorneys saying my client's not going to pay, yeah, right. You get into court by law, the numbers work out, you still have exposure to pay attorney's fees even though you're paying alimony.
But enough with the theory, let's get real. How are people reacting to this ban? Well, it's a mixed bag to say the least. Some are cheering it on, claiming it's a win for equality. Others, however, are frantically Googling how to make money fast and new career at 50.
Should women be scared of the new Florida divorce law? Yes. No longer is there permanent alimony. The amount of alimony that you're going to get has been predetermined. The length of time that you are going to get alimony has been cut down. That's why married women should fear the new Florida divorce law.
So, what does all this mean? In short, the impact of the alimony ban isn't black and white. It's a complex issue with winners, losers, and a lot of people in between. But whether you see the ban as a win for equality or a step backward, one thing's for sure. The days of easy alimony are over, and it's time to start thinking about what comes next. All right, guys, we've come to the end of this video, and if you enjoyed it, do well to click on the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to check other videos on our playlist. We've got some amazing contents for you. See you in our next video.